The cards are still making their way through the church. You'll have time to fill these out while you're waiting for Andidron. So leave your, as they would say in class, put your pencils down. You'll have time to do that later. Okay, for those who don't understand what I just said, because I heard some murmuring, like, what is he talking about? What does he want us to do now? This priest is like obsessed with forms. We know how he goes. All right. The idea is that we want to, I'll get to it in the sermon. If you don't know what I was asking for, by the time I'm done talking, you'll know what I'm asking for. Just take a card and a pen if you don't have one. That's the instructions for now. We all know what that means, right? Take a card out of the tray and hold on to it. A couple of announcements this morning as the tray is going through, and then I'll give the homily. There's a couple of services going on this week at our church. The first one's going to be on Tuesday night at 6:30, and it's an ecumenical service with Christ the King Roman Catholic Church. Father Len, who's the priest over at Christ the King, and I are friends and have been for a few years, and he's been here. And last February, we had a service for peace in the world and peace in the Middle East especially, and we had that service over at Christ the King, and our choir sang along with their choir, and there were about 400 people in attendance, and Father Len said, we're going to do something historical. We're going to pass the tray in a Catholic church that's going to go to an Orthodox charity. And there were lots of our people there and lots of their people there, and it was a really beautiful thing. And so this week, we're going to reciprocate that, and we're going to have a service here on Tuesday night, and we're going to pray again for peace in the world. We're going to pray for our environment. We're going to pray for causes that all of us share as Christians, as human beings. And so I invite you to come here. Both our choir and the Christ the King choir are going to sing. I was here the other night for choir practice, and it was just magnificent, the two choirs together. So I encourage you to come and to pray and to welcome our brethren from Christ the King. Our goal is to do this twice a year in February or March, somewhere in there, over at Christ the King, and then in September here at St. John's. And we're following the example of our Patriarch Bartholomew, who sends a delegation every year on St. Peter's Day to Rome, and the Pope sends a delegation every year to Constantinople for St. Andrew, and we are encouraged. We're not going to obviously celebrate the liturgy, but we're encouraged to come and to pray together, and so I encourage you to come Tuesday. And then Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock is the feast day of the Holy Cross. That's a major feast day of the church. We'll have Divine Liturgy on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. If you have basilico or basil growing in your yard and you'd like to bring some of it either Wednesday or next Sunday when we're going to repeat the procession, just bring it to my side door of the altar or take it to the kitchen where we'll be preparing the tray, and that can be part of our service on Wednesday or next Sunday. A couple of other things. A week from tomorrow, Monday the 19th, we're starting the Orthodoxy 101 class. It's a 3-week class on Monday nights with the basics of our faith. If you have never taken this class before or would like to know more about the basics of our faith, please consider attending. Again, it's just a 3-week class. There are many of you who are ministry heads or others that are needing information, and we all need information about the youth protection policies. There's going to be a meeting with Catherine Matseus in the Zaharias room at 12:15 as soon as we're done here. So we're needing as many people as possible from our various ministries to go and attend that meeting so that we can all understand the safety practices that our archdiocese, our insurance company, and the U.S. law is encouraging us to adopt to keep everyone safe here in our church. There is also community outreach this Saturday. And then finally, if you're between age 24 and 40, really, not if you wish you were between age 24 and 40. If you are in between age 24 and 40-ish, I'd like to ask if you could stay in the church for a couple minutes, just in the pews after I give out a Vidron. I want to find out, I want to gauge the interest, and who would be interested in a young adult group, so that you can meet one another. There's several, over the last month, several connection cards have come in where people have checked the 24 to 40 age range, indicating they'd like to have some kind of a ministry for young adults. And rather than have a meeting and some formal thing, just stay for 5 minutes after I'm done giving out on Vidron so that I can meet you, you can meet one another, and we can decide and figure out what kind of things we want to do for your age ministry. Okay. Raise your hand if you know every person who's sitting in church today. Nobody. Raise your hand if you know everybody who's sitting in the church today. Does anybody here know every single person who's sitting in the church? I mean, even I don't, so I have to put my hand down. There's a couple people I don't know. All right, so no one knows that. Is there anybody who would feel comfortable coming up here in front of the entire congregation and just bearing their soul? Anybody? One daring person in the back. So, you don't have to do that. I'm just asking rhetorically. All right, so no one would do that. Is there anybody here who has a close group of friends? Anyone here that has a close group of friends? Is anyone here who has a close group of friends that you would go and bare your soul to? I mean, if you had a problem, you need some advice, forget bearing your soul. Just if you need some advice. Who here has a group of friends that you would do that with? All right, good. I'm glad. I don't know if you remember, I guess we all remember what we were doing on 9/11. I think a lot of us got into our little groups that night, whether it was our families or our close friends, just because we wanted to be with somebody. And we wanted to just kind of process what happened. I don't think there was anyone who sat alone that day, because everyone just wanted to be with somebody. Even people who were glued to the TV did it in small groups, because they just wanted someone to share the pain with and someone to share the confusion with. Like, we all needed that. And in our life, we all need a group of friends. We have our families, for sure. Thank God we have our families. But we need things that are larger than our families. Because most people's families, 1, 2, 3, maybe even 5 or 10 people. And our families, they love us unconditionally, thank God. But we need people outside of our families because they offer us sometimes more objective input. Everybody needs a small group. Jesus knew thousands of people, and he had a small group. It was his 12 disciples. So when he got done preaching to the thousands of people that he would preach to, he would hunker down at the end of the day with his group of disciples for fellowship, sometimes for prayer, share a good meal, share a good laugh. Sometimes Jesus needed his disciples to do something for him. When it was time for the Passover, he sent a couple of them into Jerusalem and said, I need you to go find a room for us to have the Passover in. Before Palm Sunday, he said, I need a couple of you to go find a donkey for me to ride on. And sometimes he didn't need them to do anything. In fact, in his most heart-wrenching moment in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he was about to be betrayed, and he knew what was going to happen, and he knew that it was going to be awful, he grabbed his disciples, and he said, I don't need you to do anything for me. I just need you to sit and watch me so that I know I'm not alone. I just need you to sit with me and be with me so that I know that I'm not alone. He didn't ask them to do anything. He just asked them to sit and watch. Now, we have lots of small groups in our church. We call many of them ministries. The choir is a small group. Its job is to sing. The Sunday school teachers, that's a small group. Their job is to teach. The Philoptohos, that is a small group. Their job is to minister to the poor. The Young at Heart is a small group. Their job is to have fellowship and pareia for our senior citizens. The Goya is a small group. We have a bunch of small group Bible studies. And the purpose of the small group of Bible studies is to talk about the Christian life. We have like 6 of them. Right? Now, there's 2 purposes for each ministry. Each ministry has a set thing that it does. Even the parish council, that's a ministry. It administers the church, the festival committee. Everything that you see listed on the back of the messenger or the back of the bulletin, it has a purpose for which it exists. And we know that purpose. But there's another purpose for which each ministry exists, and that is to strengthen the life of all the members of that ministry. All right? So let's say that somebody's singing in the choir, and somebody who's singing in the choir, God forbid, has an illness. There's a place where the choir members can go and they can share that. Maybe they're not going to share in front of the whole community that I'm going through a hard time, but they're going to share in their little group, I'm having a hard time. And then that group is going to minister to them. Not only the choir ministers to us, and they sing so beautifully every Sunday, and we're so thankful for that, but the choir should minister to one another. There shouldn't be anybody in the choir who says, I feel like I'm alone and I don't have anybody, because they have a small group. Ditto with the parish council. We know what the parish council does. But there's no one that's on the parish council that should say, I feel like I don't have anybody that I can talk to. Because there's 11 people we sit around the table with and we do business, so we should be able to pray with them. We should be able to minister to them. If one of those 11 people falls down, there should be 10 other people that's running to pick them up. Now, we know that the Christian life is a hard life. It's not an easy life. Never mind that it's hard to come here every Sunday when you feel tired and you don't feel like coming to church. It's hard to do that week after week after week after week. It's hard to understand, where is God when things go wrong in life? It's hard to say, I love God, when many people out there are saying God is passé, or just some made-up thing that you people do. It's hard to stay true to Christian values when everybody outside seems to be like against them. That's a hard thing. And so the only way that we're going to make it, all of us together, is if we are in little groups and we strengthen one another. I was looking over a list the other day for something in the office. I was looking at the list of all the stewards of our church, and my eyes were going down the list, and I'm like, I haven't seen that one in a while. 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 I said, you know, it would probably take me the better part of 2 days to take off 2 days of work and just call these people and just say, where have you been? Are you okay? All right, and of course, that never happens because there's all kinds of things going on. So if there's somebody, as I said last Sunday, that you haven't seen for a while, you call them and say, I miss you. Where have you been? We miss you in the large group. Right? Now, going back to the small group, the purpose of the small groups, whatever groups they are, is to engage people so that you have a second spiritual home. We have the large group here, and it's very large, and it's getting larger, and I praise God for that, and I thank God for that. But we're not going to know everybody who's in the church. That's impossible. Even I don't know everybody who's in the church. So we all need a secondary group to belong to, a subgroup of the church, so that we can help and strengthen one another. And so maybe that's a young adult group, maybe that's a Bible study, maybe that's a group we haven't even formed yet. But I want you, as I'm finishing and giving on Bidron today, to take that card and to write down what are the groups that you participate in, and what's the group that maybe you want to participate in that you're not participating in yet. And I'm going to give it to the welcoming committee so they can help connect you and encourage you to belong to some group here. Because at some point, everyone's going to need someone to talk to spiritually. And it's not necessarily going to be me, it's going to be one of your peers who's doing the same things that you're doing. Something that you share in common. We overlook this aspect of ministry, that we minister to one another in the ministry. I bet there are lots of people in Philopoulos or Goya or Sunday school who don't think, I'm not only here to learn or to serve, I'm here to serve the one I'm right here with. As I said, Jesus had a small group, and we have lots of small groups here. I encourage you, we're gonna have 6 small group Bible studies this fall. They're all going to start next week. None of them are starting this week. They're all going to start next week, except one that's going to start in 2 weeks. All the information about it is in the messenger. If you think, I could never show up at somebody's house, and they don't know me, like the purpose of these small groups is you can show up at their house. If they don't know you, they're expecting people they don't know to show up at their house and study the Bible. All right? The men's group meets here at the church. If you don't know me, you can still come to the men's group. Lots of interesting guys, just like you, just like me, to share fellowship with. And as I said, if you're 24 to 40, if you want to just stay here for a couple minutes, I personally want to help get you connected to something in our church to see what it is that we can offer you, what I can offer you personally for that young adult group. All right. I'm asking for you to, again, fill out the cards. And Tom, if you could bring a couple empty baskets. Oh, they're there. Okay, great. Yeah, I'll put them in here. That way you don't have to run over there. Oh, good. And just put them in here. And our greeters today are Edie Cavagles. Come up, stand up here, Edie. And Jenny Columbus, who's right over there. Come here, Jenny. And our ambassador is Sandra Pappas, who was right over there. Come on over here, Sandra. If you just stick them in. Yeah, the chairs is good. And so if you're new to the community and you want to join and get connected with someone, just meet Jenny or Edie or Sandra. Again, have a wonderful week. Thanks for sharing a beautiful service today. I know it's very emotional for some of us. I thank God that September 11th is a Sunday so we can mark this day together in prayer and in fellowship. And again, I hope that you have a beautiful and blessed week. Thanks for sharing a beautiful Sunday morning.